Welcome to day 3. You are halfway there. All right, this video is just going to be supplemental. I'm going to give you some of my tips and tricks as well as some examples. So let's get started. If somehow you're finding this video and you're not signed up to the 5-day mini course of moving abroad, then link is in description. Sign up, you'll get all of the resources. This is just a supplemental, so we have spreadsheets and worksheets and all checklists and all kinds of things that are happening within the 5 days, plus a bonus day and tons of resources to get you started. So each day we're covering 4 main topics, and today's topics are healthcare and insurance, tax implications. I can't even say the word. I hate the word. The housing market, whether or not to buy, sell, or kind of check out kind of what you should be doing, and then understanding the true cost of living. If you have been enjoying the last 3 days and also feel like you need a little bit of support and you're kind of like, this is a lot of information, this is where my new course that I am developing is coming in. You will get 2 hours within 5 weeks of one-on-one with me. I can be helping you create your goals. I can be your accountability coach. I can be your cheerleader. I can be your resource person. However you want to use those 2 hours in the 5-hour time period is yours to decide. There are going to be tons more resources, as well as so many more subjects about moving abroad that I could not jam into this mini course. That's why I made it. And I know this one is free, but the course will be paid, but it will be so inexpensive compared to all of the loss of frustration and a smoother transition that you'll have. Link is in the description to sign up for the wait list, and soon it'll be launched and you'll know right away. This is one of the most confusing topics for immigrants or people who are moving to a new country. There are technically, depending on your country, 3 types of insurance and possibly 4 that you may be thinking or looking into. So let's talk about myself, for example. I am a US citizen, so I lived in the US and I had health insurance through the US. That is technically called private insurance because I paid for it. Marketplace is also a private insurance. While I was traveling, I also had travel insurance because my US health insurance doesn't cover me anywhere other than the US. Once I started to apply for my residency in Portugal, I needed what was considered an EU insurance, meaning that the time that I was starting and I wasn't a resident all the way up to the time that I was accepted as a resident, I needed some sort of gap insurance, and they wanted to make sure that that insurance covered me in the EU, which my US insurance does not. It also had to be a certain amount of coverage, and I had to show proof of this when I applied for my visa. So that is another one. That insurance can also have travel insurance, but often it is not just travel insurance. It is too much of a deductible and a requirement that travel insurance is not going to be the type of insurance that will cover the requirement for the visa application. Then when I got approved as a resident, I was eligible for public and private insurance within Portugal. Public insurance is automatic and I get it just because I was a resident. And private insurance is if I want things to move a little bit faster, I want to pay out of pocket, I maybe want to have doctors in different medical systems or throughout the country. So it really depends on what you'd like. What I would highly suggest is do not put what your health insurance system from your home country and plop it into your new country. And let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. Because I'm from the US and because the medical insurance bracket is so crazy there. When I came, I was like, I absolutely need private insurance and I need absolutely $1 million, $2 million. I need to do this. Whatever. I didn't. As was explained, I took that first year and I paid that insurance. I was absolutely overinsured. But coming from the US, I knew that if I lost my job, got sick in the US, that the medical bills could have actually bankrupted me. I could lose my home and all of the other things. So I was so scared when I came to Portugal. I was also a member of a concierge medical service, and they explained to me that, for example, if I got cancer, if I wanted to get my testing and diagnostic done really quickly, I would go through the private and pay out of pocket a little bit, but I would go through a private system, and that's why private insurance is there. But once I was diagnosed with the cancer, the treatment would go into the public sector because it was so expensive. So I was so overinsured and I didn't know it. So after the second year, I was like, okay, I'm going to get less insurance. And because I better understood the health system, learned from my mistake, and don't pay as much money as I did. And because I compared the US health system with the Portuguese health system. For my first year, I thought it was important to have someone helping me explain the medical procedures, the medical options, and also just the day to day on how to get in and out, how to schedule an appointment, how to arrive to an appointment, what to do. So I actually found a medical concierge service, and they also had what they would call an insurance broker that took me through all of the insurances. They asked me a whole lot of questions about my medical history and then offered me multiple insurances to look for, as well as were able to help me sign up. Then I also had a nurse that was specifically assigned to me so that if I had any questions as to my doctor gave me blood work forms, but I don't know where to do the blood work, they would tell me, compared to where I lived, where is the closest place that I could go to. So it really depends. That for me, my peace of mind, I think it was like 120 euros a year, which is 10 euros a month. For me, coming to a new country with the medical system and navigating it, I thought it was well worth it. After that first year, I did cancel the membership because I had already gone through the process and understood. Taxes, the dreaded word. I hate taxes in the US, and I knew that I would hate taxes in Portugal and in the US. So I decided for my first year to get some help. And I paid quite a bit of money for my first year, but I wanted to make sure that I understood the tax timeline, what I needed to do for the US, how I could extend. I had an LLC, so I wanted to make sure that I registered it, and then the best way to get my tax cuts as much as possible in Portugal. So I wanted to make sure that I had a professional, which was great. I had a professional under one service. One person did my US taxes, and a Portuguese person did my Portuguese taxes. They were able to explain each system very smoothly, so it went very well. It was expensive though. So there are options to do it on your own for sure, or there might be options in, a cheaper or a less expensive service. I just picked them because that's who I felt comfortable with. We're going to talk about exchange rates and currency stability. Currency stability only really needs to be a concern if your home country's currency is not stable. For example, if you have a currency like Morocco, where you can't get the currency outside of the country, then you may have some issues paying bills back home or getting cash outside of Morocco when you're in your new country. Versus currency stability of the EU, Canada, US, Australia. They're very stable, but your exchange rate you're going to want to keep an eye on. And I never really looked at exchange rates very much, but now I'm watching them all the time. I use Wise, and I have a link down. It's perfect because I can set up automatic Exchanges when the exchange rate is at a percentage that I have stated, and it will automatically transfer from my US bank account into my Portuguese bank account. There's only been one time where I've actually made money, and it was when the dollar was quite high compared to the EU. I think it was last summer, and I transferred a huge amount of money, and I think I made like 500 euros on it. So it can be a benefit as well. Also, you want to check bank transfers. If you use Wise, you're not going to be getting like a wire transfer or a bank transfer fee that is going to be as high as what you would get in your US bank or credit union. As I said before, I would consult with a tax advisor or accountant or tax preparer for the first year, or even maybe the first and the second year, depending on when you move into your new country. Because of the tax implications, you just want to make sure that you're doing everything correct. And you also want to know going forward that you have prepared yourself and prevented any kind of tax implications in the future for the next tax seasons. Housing is a huge step, and you have to make a lot of decisions before you even leave your home country, because usually you need a lease or a home sale purchase proof before you can apply for your visa, depending on what type of visa it is. So, a lot of people ask, should I rent, should I buy, or should I just kind of wait and see? And my suggestion from everyone that I have talked to in Portugal is wait and see. There are some people who have bought homes due to the visa requirements, and they really wish they lived in a different area. And now they are forced with making the decision of using the property as a rental and possibly going someplace else, or selling the property and buying a whole new property. And that within the first year or two of immigration can be incredibly stressful. The other reason why I would suggest to wait and see is you're going to rent an apartment or a home somewhere, and you don't know very much about what the neighborhood is like. So within that first year, not only will you get a better idea of what your neighborhood is like, but also other areas or neighborhoods that you like that you might want to rent. At that point, then I would rent in that area and then start looking for purchasing a home or an apartment if you choose to do that. There are a lot of people who emigrate and they use their financial, like pension or financial investments, to just rent and never own a property. I personally don't know if I'll ever own another property, especially in Portugal. I have heard so many horror stories about purchasing a home or an apartment, having mold, having to now have the dilemma, what do? You need to fix it, but you can't live there. You can't rent it out. You can't get live there anymore. So if you rent and there happens to be a mold issue, you can have a conversation with your landlord, break the lease, and move somewhere else quick and easy. So for me, my suggestion is always to rent where you think you want to go. You should have already either looked and researched quite extensively or even visited the area. Give it a year and then go from there. If you choose after that point to start to purchase a home or an apartment or land, then I would think that you would have a better understanding of the language, the real estate culture there in your new country, prices, how prices fluctuate, how the mortgages work, everything, so that you can get a better idea of if buying is good for you. One of the things that I didn't think about until the very, very end, where I started to apply for my visa, was all of the juggling that I was going to need to do for housing. So, for example, I owned a home in the US and I chose to rent it out, which meant that I needed to leave that property. But I also didn't want to have a long-term lease in the state that I was living. So I chose to pet sit so that I could have housing while I was applying. But in the process, I also had to have a lease in Portugal, and I was paying the deposit and the monthly rent on that. There was a point where I was paying three Housing bills. One was my mortgage, which thankfully, once it got started and was rented, was actually getting replaced. One was occasionally when I was out between pet sits. And then the third one was my apartment in Portugal. Not a lot of people talk about this. That is a lot of money to just kind of be like moving around all month. And each month that you don't get accepted as a resident and your visa doesn't get approved, you're continuing to pay that. So some people will solve this by selling their home and then moving in with family and then getting the apartment. And once they're approved, they move. Others don't have a home that they need to sell. They just break their lease or end their lease. They travel, they become digital nomads, or they do things like house sitting, pet sitting, workaways, volunteering, whatever they can to have a place to stay. And then once approved, they go into the house that they, or the apartment or house that they've been renting in their new country. So it really depends. You have to know that you can financially handle at least two types of rent payments per month for probably 3 to 5 months on average. When we talk about cost of living, there are cost of living calculators out there, and we're going to show a couple examples in the next slide. But what I'm talking about is be real honest with your true cost of living. And sometimes this can be really scary. So look at your past bills and audit what you spend most of your money on. If you're spending most of your money on going out and eating, then that has to be accounted for. And you need to look at the cost of living and the price of restaurant eating in the new country versus your home country. If it has been a lot of expenses on cars or services that you no longer are going to be using in your new country, then that can buffer your budget a little bit and give you an idea. There are some places where you may choose to live where the cost of living is higher for rent, but the cost of living for outdoor entertainment, meals, concerts, food are much less. And so you have to make that decision on what's best for you and your budget. The easiest way to create a budget is to go to the country and spend at least 1 month there. Usually, most people will do what's called a scouting trip, and they'll go and they'll be looking for neighborhoods, rentals, they'll look through apartments, they'll maybe get their bank account, and they'll have everything ready, and then leave the country, go back to their home country, and apply for the visa. So, what you can do during that month or 2 months, or however long you're able to spend in the country that you're going to plan to move to, is have a realistic budget. Create the budget and see if you can actually live within that budget on a week to week basis. If you can't, then the important thing is to kind of figure out, does that mean you're going to have to get an apartment that costs less? Are you not maybe going to be able to live in the neighborhood that you wanted? Are you maybe overestimating the amount of times that you're going to want to go out and go to eat? All of those things are important. Day 3 is done. Congratulations. Tomorrow we'll cover 4 more subjects and you'll get even more information and resources as you have today. I'm so glad you're sticking in with it. Good luck, and I'll see you tomorrow. Day 3 is done. Congratulations. Tomorrow we'll cover 4 more subjects and you'll get even more information and resources as you have today. I'm so glad you're sticking in with it. Good luck, and I'll see you tomorrow.